Welcome to Certification Terminal. In this series of video, we are going to discuss a couple of CompTIA YA plus Core 2 question and answers. Let's dive in. When encountering an access denied error message while trying to open a file, what is the first thing you should investigate for troubleshooting? Option A, file extension. Option B, file size. Option C, file location. Option D, file permissions. The correct answer is Option D, file permissions. When encountering an access denied error message, the first thing to investigate for troubleshooting is file permissions. File permissions determine who can access, modify, or execute a file. An access denied error typically occurs when the user attempting to access the file does not have the necessary permissions to do so. Checking and adjusting file permissions, including ownership and access rights, is essential for resolving this type of error and ensuring proper file access. Option A, file extension, is incorrect. The file extension specifies the format or type of the file, example, .txt for text files, .jpg for image files. However, the file extension is unlikely to be the cause of an access denied error message. Issues related to file extensions usually result in different error messages, such as unsupported file format or file type not recognized. Option B, file size, is incorrect. The file size indicates the amount of data stored within the file. However, file size is not typically relevant to an access denied error message. Issues with file size might lead to errors, such as file too large or insufficient disk space, but not access denied. Option C, file location, is incorrect. The file location refers to the directory or folder where the file is stored on the computer or network. While file location can sometimes influence access permissions, example, accessing files in restricted directories, it is not the first thing to investigate when troubleshooting an access denied error message. Permissions issues are more likely to be related to the specific settings applied to the file rather than its location. Next question. What needs replacement from the following options after being affected by a voltage spike? Option A, power supply. Option B, battery backup. Option C, surge suppressor. Option D, electrical cable. The correct answer is Option A, power supply. After being affected by a voltage spike, the power supply unit is the component that typically requires replacement. A voltage spike can damage the internal components of the power supply, leading to issues such as power instability, overheating, or failure to provide adequate power to the system components. Replacing the power supply is essential to ensure the proper functioning and safety of the computer or electronic device. Option B, battery backup, is incorrect. While a battery backup, UPS, protects electronic devices from power fluctuations and provides backup power during outages, it is not typically the component that requires replacement after a voltage spike. The battery backup itself may need to be replaced if it fails to hold a charge or if its performance is compromised, but it is not the primary component affected by a voltage spike. Option C, surge suppressor, is incorrect. A surge suppressor is designed to protect electronic devices from voltage spikes by diverting excess voltage to the ground. In most cases, a surge suppressor absorbs the impact of the voltage spike and sacrifices itself to protect the connected devices. While it is advisable to inspect and potentially replace a surge suppressor after a significant voltage spike, it is not the primary component that needs replacement. Option D, electrical cable, is incorrect. The electrical cable connects the electronic device to the power source, but is not typically the component that requires replacement after a voltage spike. While a damaged electrical cable can pose a safety hazard and should be replaced if it is frayed, cut, or otherwise compromised, it is not directly affected by a voltage spike, in the same way as the power supply unit. Next question. What is the most appropriate characterization of a scenario where a company demands multi-factor authentication, but a user attempting to access a remote app program that mandates authentication does not receive a PIN prompt? Option A, insufficient user privileges. Option B, password expiration. Option C, single sign-on. Option D, principle of least privilege. The correct answer is option C, single sign-on. Single sign-on, SSO, is a system that allows users to access multiple applications or services with a single set of credentials. In this scenario, the absence of a PIN prompt when accessing a remote app program suggests that the user might already be authenticated through a single sign-on mechanism. With SSO, users may not need to enter a PIN or other authentication credentials for each individual application if they have already authenticated themselves through the SSO system. Option A, insufficient user privileges, is incorrect. This option suggests that the user does not have enough privileges to receive the PIN prompt, which is not likely the case in the scenario described. The absence of the PIN prompt is more likely due to other factors related to authentication mechanisms rather than insufficient user privileges. Option B, password expiration, is incorrect. Password expiration refers to a security policy where passwords are required to be changed after a certain period. This scenario does not directly relate to the absence of a PIN prompt when accessing a remote app program. Password expiration would involve users being prompted to change their passwords periodically, which is different from the lack of a PIN prompt. Option D, principle of least privilege, is incorrect. The principle of least privilege states that users should only be granted the minimum level of access or permissions required to perform their tasks. While this principle is important for security, it does not directly relate to the absence of a PIN prompt when accessing a remote app program. This scenario is more closely associated with single sign-on mechanisms rather than the principle of least privilege. Next question. What type of hardware device is the least common for deployment as a security tool? Option A, biometric thumbprint reader. Option B, key fob. Option C, smart card. Option D, SD flash card. The correct answer is option D, SD flash card. SD flash cards are primarily used for data storage in devices such as cameras, smartphones, and portable media players. While they may have some limited security applications, such as storing encryption keys or sensitive data, they are not as commonly deployed as dedicated security tools compared to biometric thumbprint readers, key fobs, or smart cards. Option A, biometric thumbprint reader, is incorrect. Biometric thumbprint readers are commonly deployed as security tools for authentication purposes. They offer a high level of security by using unique biometric data for user identification. Option B, key fob, is incorrect. Key fobs are frequently used as security devices, especially for two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication systems. They generate one-time passwords or authentication codes, enhancing security. Option C, smart card, is incorrect. Smart cards are widely used for authentication and access control in various industries. They provide secure storage for cryptographic keys and personal identification information, making them essential components of many security systems. Next question. What security mechanism is utilized for remote network access, necessitating a username, password, and an RSA token code? Option A, multi-factor authentication. Option B, principle of least privilege. Option C, access control list. Option D, firewall. The correct answer is option A, multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, requires users to provide two or more forms of authentication before granting access. In this scenario, users must supply a username and password, along with an RSA token code, making it a form of MFA. This approach significantly enhances security by adding an extra layer of verification beyond just a password. Option B, principle of least privilege, is incorrect. The principle of least privilege refers to granting users only the minimum level of access or permissions necessary to perform their tasks. While it is an important security principle, it does not directly relate to the scenario described, which involves authentication mechanisms for remote network access. Option C, access control list, is incorrect. Access control lists, ACLs, are used to manage access to network resources by specifying which users or systems are allowed or denied access to specific resources. However, ACLs do not directly relate to the authentication process itself, which is the focus of the scenario. Option D, firewall, is incorrect. A firewall is a network security device that monitors and controls incoming and outgoing network traffic based on predetermined security rules. While firewalls play a crucial role in network security by filtering traffic, they do not directly handle user authentication for remote network access, as described in the scenario. Next question. What is the most plausible reason behind Bob, a mobile device user, depleting his monthly data allowance halfway through the current billing cycle despite consistent usage habits? Option A, malware is causing excessive data transmission. Option B, location tracking has been enabled. Option C, there are unintended Wi-Fi connections. Option D, applications are causing high resource utilization. The correct answer is Option A, malware is causing excessive data transmission. Malware can often run in the background of a device, consuming data by sending and receiving information without the user's knowledge. If Bob's device has been infected with malware, it could be responsible for the unexpected depletion of his monthly data allowance, despite his consistent usage habits. Malware can initiate data-intensive activities, such as sending spam emails, downloading large files, or participating in botnet activities, leading to increased data usage. Option B, location tracking has been enabled, is incorrect. While location tracking can contribute to data usage, especially if Bob's device is constantly transmitting location data to a remote server, this scenario is less likely to deplete his monthly data allowance halfway through the billing cycle, especially if his usage habits have remained consistent. Location tracking typically consumes minimal data compared to other activities. Option C, there are unintended Wi-Fi connections, is incorrect. Unintended Wi-Fi connections may result in data usage if the device automatically connects to unfamiliar networks or if data is transferred over these connections without Bob's knowledge. However, this scenario is less likely to account for the significant depletion of his monthly data allowance, especially if his usage habits have not changed. Option D, applications are causing high resource utilization, is incorrect. While certain applications running in the background could consume data, especially if they are constantly syncing or updating, this scenario is less likely to lead to the rapid depletion of Bob's monthly data allowance, unless those applications are specifically designed to use excessive data. Additionally, if Bob's usage habits have remained consistent, it is less likely that applications suddenly started causing high resource utilization without his knowledge. Next question. What is the primary task for Bob when he first arrives at an on-site job? Option A, introduce himself and review the customer safety rules. Option B, have a meeting with all of the managers to introduce himself. Option C, introduce himself and ask the customer if they are ready for him to start working. Option D, immediately start to repair the problem. The correct answer is Option A, introduce himself and review the customer safety rules. When Bob arrives at an on-site job, his primary task is to ensure safety both for himself and for those around him. Introducing himself to the client and reviewing any safety rules or procedures ensures that he is aware of any potential hazards in the work environment and knows how to navigate them safely. This helps prevent accidents or injuries during the course of the job. Option B, have a meeting with all of the managers to introduce himself, is incorrect. While it's important for Bob to introduce himself to key personnel at the worksite, especially managers who may be overseeing the project, it is not necessarily his primary task upon arrival. Safety should take precedence, and he should first familiarize himself with any safety rules or procedures. Option C, introduce himself and ask the customer if they are ready for him to start working, is incorrect. While it's courteous for Bob to introduce himself to the customer and confirm readiness to begin work, his primary task upon arrival should be to prioritize safety by reviewing safety rules or procedures. Option D, immediately start to repair the problem, is incorrect. Jumping straight into repairing the problem without first assessing safety risks or reviewing safety rules could lead to accidents or injuries. Safety should always be the first consideration in any work environment. Next question. What is the primary action when beginning to manage an existing software system? Option A, train the end users on the system. Option B, test the system for bugs. Option C, analyze the code in the system. Option D, identify the requirements for the software. The correct answer is Option D, identify the requirements for the software. When beginning to manage an existing software system, the primary action should be to understand the system's requirements thoroughly. This involves identifying the needs, functionalities, and constraints of the software system. Understanding the requirements provides a foundation for effective management and future decision-making regarding the system. Option A, train the end users on the system, is incorrect. While training end users is an important aspect of managing a software system, it typically occurs after understanding the system's requirements. Training end users before understanding the system's requirements may result in ineffective training or addressing the wrong needs. Option B, test the system for bugs, is incorrect. Testing the system for bugs is an essential step in managing a software system, but it typically occurs after understanding the system's requirements. Testing helps identify and rectify any issues or bugs in the system, but without knowing the system's requirements, testing may not be comprehensive or targeted. Option C, analyze the code in the system, is incorrect. Analyzing the code in the system is an important task, especially for developers or technical personnel involved in managing the software system. However, it is not typically the primary action when beginning to manage the system. Understanding the system's requirements precedes code analysis and helps guide subsequent actions related to the system's code. Next question. Which part of the hard drive remains hidden from users in File Explorer on Windows 10 and is solely utilized during the restoration of the computer to its original factory settings? Option A, primary. Option B, swap. Option C, extended. Option D, recovery. The correct answer is Option D, recovery. In Windows 10, the recovery partition remains hidden from users in File Explorer and is exclusively used during the restoration of the computer to its original factory settings. This partition contains the necessary files and data to revert the system to its initial configuration, such as system images, recovery tools, and diagnostic utilities. Option A, primary, is incorrect. The primary partition refers to the main partition on the hard drive that typically contain the operating system, user files, and installed programs. While primary partitions are visible in File Explorer, they are not solely dedicated to system restoration, as the recovery partition is. Option B, swap, is incorrect. The swap partition is typically used in Linux operating systems as virtual memory space, allowing the system to utilize disk space as additional RAM when needed. It is not specific to Windows 10 and does not play a role in system restoration. Option C, extended, is incorrect. The extended partition is a type of partition used in older disk partitioning schemes to overcome the limitation of only having 4 primary partitions on a disk. Like the swap partition, it is not directly related to system restoration in Windows 10. Next question. Which of the following techniques is commonly used to manipulate individuals into disclosing confidential data? Option A, social engineering. Option B, farming. Option C, spyware. Option D, ransomware. The correct answer is Option A, social engineering. Social engineering is a tactic commonly used to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential data by exploiting human psychology and emotions. Attackers often employ various strategies, such as pretexting, phishing, baiting, or tailgating, to trick individuals into revealing sensitive information willingly. Option B, farming, is incorrect. Farming is a technique used to redirect website traffic to fraudulent websites, typically through DNS poisoning or malware. While farming can lead to individuals being directed to fake websites where they might inadvertently disclose confidential data, it does not involve direct manipulation of individuals, as social engineering does. Option C, spyware, is incorrect. Spyware is a malicious software that secretly gathers information about a user's activities without their knowledge or consent. While spyware can capture confidential data from infected devices, it does not directly manipulate individuals into disclosing information, as social engineering does. Option D, ransomware, is incorrect. Ransomware is a type of malware that encrypts files or locks a user's device, demanding payment, a ransom, for decryption or restoration of access. While ransomware can lead to data loss or financial harm, it does not involve manipulation of individuals to disclose confidential data as social engineering does. Next question. What corrective action should the technician prioritize to prevent recurring server errors as reported by a user encountering issues opening files despite functional data backups, adverse weather conditions, and gaps in the event log? Option A, surge protector. Option B, battery backup. Option C, hard drives. Option D, system memory. The correct answer is Option B, battery backup. A battery backup, also known as an uninterruptible power supply, UPS, provides power protection to servers during electrical outages or fluctuations. It ensures continuous operation and prevents data loss or corruption, which can occur during sudden power loss, even if data backups are functional. Adverse weather conditions, such as storms, can lead to power surges or outages, making a battery backup essential for maintaining server availability and preventing errors. Option A, surge protector, is incorrect. While surge protectors help safeguard electronic devices from power surges, they do not provide continuous power during outages like a battery backup does. Surge protectors alone cannot prevent server errors caused by power interruptions, especially in adverse weather conditions. Option C, hard drives, is incorrect. Hard drives store data but do not directly address issues related to power interruptions or adverse weather conditions. While failing hard drives can cause data access issues, in this scenario, the reported server errors are likely due to power-related issues, making a battery backup a more appropriate corrective action. Option D, system memory, is incorrect. System memory is essential for server performance, but does not address the specific issue of recurring errors caused by power interruptions or adverse weather conditions. While insufficient memory can lead to performance issues, it is not the primary concern in this scenario. Next question. What could be the primary reason behind a user's inability to log in to the domain with a desktop PC, while a laptop PC operates normally on the same network and a technician cannot access the secure intranet site for troubleshooting tools after logging in with a local account? Option A, application crash. Option B, time drift. Option C, dual inline memory module failure. Option D, file system errors. The correct answer is Option B, time drift. Time drift refers to the discrepancy between the system time of the desktop PC and the domain controller's time. If the time difference exceeds the allowable threshold, authentication with the domain may fail due to authentication protocols like Kerberos requiring synchronized time between client and server. This issue is often encountered in scenarios where the desktop PC's clock is significantly off from the domain controller's clock. Option A, application crash, is incorrect. An application crash might cause specific software issues, but is unlikely to affect the ability to log into the domain or access the intranet site. Option C, dual inline memory module failure, is incorrect. While memory issues could cause system instability or crashes, they are unlikely to be the primary reason for login failures or inability to access network resources. Option D, file system errors, is incorrect. File system errors may impact local data access, but are unlikely to affect network authentication or access to intranet sites. They typically do not prevent logging into a domain or accessing network resources. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel if these questions add value to your preparation. We'll meet in the next video. Take care until then.